You remember the New Holland? I am now calling the New Holland of sadness. Well, yeah. We need to try to get this back to him because winter time is coming, see? And a nice cab tractor like this would sure be dandy to feed cattle with and other assorted chores. So we're gonna get started right after this. Welcome back. If you haven't seen my videos before, I'm Ross the Oliver Man. I've also got something in my hand here, so I'm going to go set this down. And I will explain to you the peril that I have faced with this little deal. So, we pretty well determined through what I've done to it and looked at and talking to other New Holland people that have worked on them, and also talking to John Bender, who knows, you know, a lot about everything, because he worked at New Holland and he worked at Oliver before that. So we pretty well have determined that what this thing is going to get is a hydraulic pump, you know, a hydraulic pump to run the hydraulics for the loader and that. See, it's got two opposing pumps, just like the Fiats, and one is steering and one is everything else. What's interesting about this setup versus some of the other Fiats is, what's funny is it's a lot like this 1250A. The 1250A is different from the later Fiats in that it has down there, which you can't see, but it's common sump. And that line is teed and it feeds both pumps, the steering pump and the pump that runs the main hydraulics. And then in the ones after that, they went to where your main hydraulic pump was pulling out of the sump in the rear end, but the steering had its own little reservoir under the hood, and all was well and good. Well, now we've went back to the original way of everything is getting pulled through that same filter. So, you know, I guess that's good or bad or other. I don't know what to say. But it certainly makes sense. It's a lot easier for guys to only have to worry about one area to check oil in versus under, you know, two places and all that. That's frustrating. I get it. So before I ever did anything, which I don't know if I said or not, I had talked to the guy who owned it and I said, have you tried, or what have you tried? You know, I said, and what I asked was, have you tried changing filters and fluid? And he said, yes, I did that. And he said it made no difference. So that's good to know, because I didn't want to just waste a bunch of new fluid immediately by putting it in, trying it, finding out it didn't work, and then draining it back out, put a new hydraulic pump, and then I'm not going to reuse fluid I just had in the other system. So you get where I'm going with this. I want to buy one batch of fluid and do that when we get a new pump. So that's where we are. So I thought to myself, I will be ahead of the curve here. I will order parts and, you know, I will have the hydraulic pump sitting here, and then all I got to do is swap it in, you know. So I looked up and it appeared there was like 4 different part numbers for this pump. And I thought, okay, you know, what to do. And I did a whole bunch of reading and tried to figure out what the differences were and whatever. And then some of them had things and they said like with super steer or deluxe model or whatever. So finally I emailed John Bender and I said, what's the difference in what I'm looking at here? And he said, well, this tractor would be a deluxe because it's got a cab. And he said super steer was an axle option that, I mean, from back in the day. So I don't know that I don't think this has that. I don't know about that. But he said all of those part numbers should eventually terminate into the same replacement part number if you follow them enough. And I couldn't figure that out. I came up with 2 different part numbers, but maybe they do finally come up together, and that's fine. So I ordered one and I thought it's going to be here. This is great. And last week I thought it should be here. Where is this? Not coming. So one day I get a blippity blip on the phone and it says, your package has been delivered. And I thought, what? So I go looking around, no package anywhere. So I get to looking again. It says it's delivered. And I thought, and it didn't give me options. It was like, you want proof of delivery. So I clicked around on stuff, and eventually it showed me where they delivered it, and it was just outside of Chicago. So I thought, that ain't gonna work. So I got a hold of them, and I said, I either want the parts or I want my money back so I can get the parts somewhere else. Well, after a short while, they sent the money back. So I'm not out any money, but I am out time, and I'm increased in frustration because I thought we would be farther along than this. All right. Nextly, I thought to myself, as many of you do every time you watch the videos, I thought, wouldn't it be a lot easier to take the loader off this tractor so that I could work on it without having to fool with this loader? And in the real world, yeah, that would be a real smart thing to do. And I got to messing with it, and for one, I was skeptical, will this stay balanced without a bucket? Because a lot of times they have to have the bucket on to stay wherever. So I got the stands on, and I just put them back where they were because we're going to go a different route now, see? I put the stands on and had them all mounted up. Of course, we were missing some pins and stuff, and I got them in there. And I got to trying to loosen bolts. And man, these bolts are in there, friends. I mean, I don't know what size breaker bar I'm going to have to get those loose, but I'm starting to feel that it's not worth it. And I talked to the guy today, actually, because it's taking way longer than it should, and I don't like to do that to people. And he said, I get it, you know, as long as you're making progress, I understand. So I said, by the way, I said, how hard is it to get that loader off? And he says, well, he said, it's never been off there in the time I owned it. And I said, well, that pretty well explains the frustration I'm having, that everything I try to take loose on it does not want to participate. I mean, he said, I usually just tie it up in the air. So I'm thinking that's either I'm going to do that or I'm going to put it down on the ground all the way. Up in the air would probably be easier to get to the hydraulic pump area right there. If a guy also were to steer it maybe this way where I could get in there. The hydraulic pumps aren't the issue to get to, but what I really wanted to do, and I don't know if I'll be able to really get it handily with the loader on, mainly because of this brace right here, which you can't hardly see because it's getting dark. That's another one of life's frustrations I'm having, is it's instantly dark and I can't get anything done, it seems like. But I think I can probably snake something back there and pull that out when we're working on this process, because I feel like that would be handy to check. See, the thing is, I guess I didn't make that clear, but there's like a pressure relief valve in the top of that filter. And there's all kinds of places on this thing that have O-rings in them, you know, like you've got the loader valve underneath there that all that plumbs into. You've got this whole apparatus here, and one of these, and I'm not sure which one it is, if it's this one, it could be this one, or it might be the thing under the cab, but one of them they call the main something or other valve, and it's like $1,700 if you buy it new, and we don't want that. But this, I don't know if that's what this is or what, but what I'm getting at is there's so many places in here that could have a potential O-ring meltdown, and you would say to yourself, well, shouldn't you check all those first before just putting a hydraulic pump on? But what I'm thinking, and what other people have kind of confirmed to me as well, is it would be really impossible for an O-ring to blow, and then when the tractor's cool, it starts working again fine. But then, you know, you use it and it gets less and less and less, and then you let it cool off like the next day, and then it works fine again. That is more of a symptom of a pump that's kind of losing its way in life, because as it cools off, you know, the oil gets thicker again, the pump works for a while, then it gets worse, and what have you. So it's going to be no fun with the loader on here as it is. But a guy really doesn't have much he can do about that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I could fool around for half a day trying to get this loader off that's never been off of this tractor, and then fool around for another half a day trying to put it back on, because if it's hard to get off of there, it probably won't want to just jump back in. That's just the way life works. So I think we will try to see if we can do it, which I think we can just fine. The biggest thing's going to be maybe move this, at the worst case scenario, take this wheel off so that a guy's got more physical room. But what I was going to try right now is to start it and turn the wheel and just see what that gains us. It may not start. This thing there's another frustration I've had with this little tractor. It's got so many safety features made into it that it wants you to be doing all the things to get it to run. And I'm saying I think you even have to be in the seat. I don't think you can do it without that. You have to have the parking brake on. I learned that because it will beep at you. And he said, because I had other lights flashing I hadn't seen before, but he said they told him to let it run its checks with the key on, and then you start it and you should be fine. See, that's gonna be, yeah. So see, I think I think I can work in there. That's some clearance. I can be up under here. I can probably even do it with the loader down, you know. And like I said, if I find it's easier, I might put a jack under that front axle and take the wheel off, and that'll gain me the distance of, you know, from the edge of the tire till about right there. So that's a good 8 or 10 inches there. So yeah, but that's where we're going to be. But you see, there was also another thing wrong with this, and that's what I was going to tackle now, and we may have to start it again. But it's got a fuel leak. So I wanted to be definitive of what the fuel leak was. I was thinking that it was the return line. There we go. There we go. There we go. See, the other problem is this hood does not... This hood does not play nice. It is very, very constricted. And we're probably going to have to run it to see what's going on. But I'm thinking that our trouble is right there. And what's happened is somebody has replaced already the factory nice, the nice factory fuel return lines there in the middle, and they have done a homemade rubber modification job. And so 1, 2, 3, this is a three cylinder. And what I was thinking is, see, this is the part I hate hate more and more each year, is the acrobatics. It's just hard on me to climb in and out and wedge under some stuff like that. But I'm gonna check the parts book and see, but somewhere here, where did I lay that stuff? Anywho, I ordered a new return line setup for this tractor, and it's a 3-cylinder, and it came in a Case IH package, and I think it's the same thing. So if that's the same part number, I could throw that one on there and order a different one for this. But that's what we got to find out. Well, friends, Price is Right, sad sound. Wah, 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 wah. That's not what I got. I got this line, which I hope is even the right one. It's supposed to go on this one from the fuel supply pump, and then we're gonna have to switch this to this, and it'll go that way to get rid of that cobbled up mess. So no, I did not get, for some reason I thought I got that, but I didn't. So, seeing what I see here, I'm gonna try some parts ordering again. And we'll get that return line set up. We'll see how it comes. I assume if it's like the ones on the other Fiats, it'll come with the 3 outlets that go it's all made into one piece. But it'll have the 3 banjo eyes for the injectors, and then it should have a longer end that comes down over here, and then it hits the next stop along life's way there to the injection pump, most likely, because it's right there. But I don't see it where it's coming in. I could crawl up to the top again, or I could just not do the thing. There it is. This is it. Wow, that is awfully long, the way that works. Okay, I feel where it goes though. It goes back there. That's going to be a trick to get to with the hood on. That might be and there again, that would probably be one of the occasions where having the loader off would definitely be a nice thing. But is it worth it, friends? For no more than I have to do to it, I'd say I can live with it. When we do that part, I might lift the loader up and get it going, you know. I could potentially put the new one on all 3 injectors and then run it down here somewhere, you know. It could even drip in a bucket or something while I run it to move the loader. The little amount that it would do, it probably wouldn't even overflow enough, you know, since it would be empty. And then I could have the old one out here too, and then route it and switch. What I'm saying is it's easier to do the motor part with the loader down, so that I can be standing on the part of the loader to work in there and to climb. But then it would be easier to put the final connection on the pump if I had the loader up. So that's what I'm trying to plan here, so that I don't totally disable this. Because if I disable it, then I gotta do whatever comes, you know. I don't have a choice then, and I don't want to do that. So that's why I've been kind of hesitant on this. I don't want to just jump in and do something foolish, because I don't know what the parts availability is on this as far as everything. I think it's probably pretty good, but I don't want to break anything unnecessarily that I don't need to. You know what I'm saying? And looking at the thing, I'm not entirely sure that that's the only fuel leak that this has got. I mean, it's got a lot of stuff going on there, friends. And you say, oh, well, that's hydraulic. No, if you look at it, it's up higher and it's running down. It's dripping on everything. There you can even see a fuel drip right in the progress of happening somewhere there. Yeah, but that is definitely diesel fuel, and it's dripping down, and it's making sadness. So the one I'm mostly concerned about is the one on the top of the engine first, because that's the kind of thing that gets then caked with trash and then starts a fire easy. And when you pressure wash it, you don't get it out of there because you don't think to go down underneath of things. So fuel return line is getting ordered. We'll start with that to fix the fuel leak. We'll try again with our pump setup. I almost now want to take it off first, but I don't know. I want this done. I want it done for him so that he can have it back. And there is finally a part number. So maybe I need to, that's what I was looking for the other day. And it's one of those things where you look at it 20 times and you miss something, but today you see it. So I might write that down. See there, it just dripped a big fuel drip from up high, and that's something else. That's more than just that return, but the return is leaking. So I'm gonna do some more man, that's crazy how that leaks. I'm gonna do some more research there on that number and write it down or take a picture or whatever, and I'll look again. maybe that was a good thing that happened to me by the stuff not showing up and getting a refund, because maybe that was my sign to be more checking, you know. I talking to people, it sounded like it was going to work, but it might be that I need to really scrape that clean. I wonder if there's a number in the aluminum too. It almost looks like it, but I see the number on the cast piece at the end. So yeah, that's where we are there. I'm taking it all in, friends. I'm kind of looking at it again just to see how they did that double sump setup there. You know, the pumps. How is this going to be to get off of there? It's going to be very difficult because we've got, I don't know, is that air conditioning lines? Yeah, probably running down right underneath. So it's going to be a struggle. And I'm not, honestly, as I look at it now, I'm not really sure that I can physically get that without taking the loader off. And I have to take also this frame brace off. And that's going to be a real pain in the Knudsen because, you know, I guess it's tapped into there. So all the bolts are out here in the open. But I think that I'm probably going to pursue that more as I look at it. Because to get the, I'm not saying I can't do it, but to get the bottom bolts out of the suction tube, which is made into a T with this, I'm not entirely sure that it's physically even possible to get any tools in there to make that happen. So, in other words, the more I look at it, it would definitely be worth taking the loader off and getting the brace off of this side, if nothing else. Being very careful not to break the glass, because we don't want to then also have to buy him a windshield or lower panels. It should be separate pieces. Most of them are, yeah, the little square pieces there versus the windshield. But that is a New Holland progress update. That is not the kind of news that you probably want, and it's not really much of a video other than just talking. But we need to get this going for him, and we need to just double check and make sure that we get stuff. And I guess I'm just going to order stuff directly from Case IH, I mean, or CNH, however you want to say it, because I'm not having no luck with other outfits. You know, I thought that some of these other places I get parts from would be more in line or reasonable, but I think we're going to bite the bullet and just do the thing. So yeah, and see, now I've talked for 25 minutes and it's almost totally black outside, you know, so it's a frustrating situation that I find myself in. The temperature right now is beautiful, and I could work out here, but I don't have any parts. No thanks to whoever sent it to the wrong place, but you know, what's a guy gonna do? But I think in the next one we will tackle some loader removal, and I will have to get 3/4 drive socket set out because 1/2 inch ain't cutting the mustard on that. And we will give it our best try. It's gonna be miserable because it's never been off of there for years, but we got to. I mean, I think that, like I said, the more I look at it on this one, the more beneficial it would be to have that side brace out of our way. Not necessarily this, but the black part that curves to the frame is very much, it would help us a little. The other frustration is going to be getting those couplers loose. I messed with them a little bit. They don't seem to want to give up the ghost, and they sit under there where they probably get a lot of trash splashed on them. So I don't know, friends. It's one of those situations I find myself in where I want to help this person because I like them, but it's also becoming very stressful for me because things just aren't going my way. But I think we can make her go. We just have to be patient, and he's being patient, which is helping, you know, that he's not screaming at me and whatever. So we're going to order a complete fuel return line, definitely, and pump, and there's a few other O-rings I thought I would order just to have in case I decide that I want to dive in before we put the fluid back in. Definitely in that filter head is one of the places, but you know what I'm saying. I really, really, really don't want to dive into this, because I feel like that if that's the one that's $1,700, I feel like there's a lot of sadness that could befall us quickly. And I'm not saying we won't end up there anyway, but there's nothing in there that would be, to my notion, that you would just lose the hydraulics like that, but then magically when you start it up, they'd start working again. And it's not like it's instantly gone. It's a gradual thing till it finally won't do it until the next time, and then it goes again. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. And we worked on, when I was at the shop, we worked on a New Holland almost exactly like this. I don't remember what size it was. And we put, I think, 3 hydraulic pumps on it over years and years and years, you know, like every 4 or 5 years. There was something about it, and we tried everything. We tried looking around, going through stuff, and it just didn't work. So I'm saying that those hydraulic pumps are just not, eventually, I would say what happens is, as your hydraulic system, which is probably also common with your transmission, as it gets more metal filings in it from the transmission being used, it probably eats on those pumps a lot quicker. Yes, you have a filter, but a filter will only do so much. And then if you compound that with maybe somebody didn't change the filter very often, or you got the same fluid in there in a basically aluminum pump, I mean, your days are kind of numbered on pumps. And I would say that probably has a lot to do with it. They are super, I mean, it's a pretty good design, because those Oliver Fiats used it for years, and it seems those are basically the same pump. But I don't know, there's just things about it, you know, that we all know that today's quality of stuff isn't the same as it used to be. So that's kind of where we are. And I see it's dripping again now. I'm gonna have to open the hood again and double. I'm gonna check some more, as he says, as I set his drink down. But I see a drip way out here now too, and I want to see what that is, because if that is something other than what we're working on there, we might ought to order that too, or figure out what we can. Get up there, Hud, get up there. Okay, so that wood, it might be dripping from that same thing, because it's coming down the outside. I know this isn't ideal for you, but see, I'm just trying to get to how we're getting that drip there, because I'm wondering if we also have injection pump of sadness, you know. Let's watch close, like. Let me just pull you back here, but somewhere down here I see it. There, it dripped. Now that would be in line with that same return, because it comes into the backside like that. On the back, you can't even see it. I can feel it, but it comes in way back here. Where is it? I had my finger on it a minute ago. Oh, it comes, well, there it is. Where are you at, buddy boy? Again, this is where, what if we do a through the cab glass situation? Okay, so that return, fuel return, looks like it's made into another thing, which then clamps right here. It's on that same banjo bolt, and then it goes up. Huh. Boy, that's a fuel leak there. Okay, well, we're gonna cross one bridge at a time, because we're not just gonna dump in a whole bunch of stuff and get into a whole bunch of sadness. But basically, we're 100% into taking the loader off now, because I'm not entirely sure that we're not going to end up pulling that injection pump off, because it looks to me like it's leaking as well. And I don't think that there's no connection between the other place that it's leaking up around the injectors. There's no way that it could run down here and be dripping off of there, is what I'm getting at. So I guess it's possible that maybe the fuel supply line would be leaking, but I don't think so. I think that the trouble is something related with this injection pump as well. We definitely have a leak under the hood, because somebody's already cobbled on that return line setup. But I'm thinking, based on what I'm seeing here, that there's possibly an injection pump leaking. But like I said, let's get the loader off, and we'll get that all off where we can get in there and really stick our head to the backside of this and try to figure it out. And then from there, we can see if there's some way or something that we're overlooking that could be the culprit of that dripping down in this area here. But I'm betting, the way this pump is made, that it's going to need a resealing job. Like the head, I think the head is leaking. It looks like the head is bolted onto the backside of that pump, and it almost looks to me like it's probably leaking in between there. But like I said, I might be wrong. I'll do some more parts book research and what have you. But one outfit at a time, friends. I don't want to have it all scattered over the yard trying to fix a bunch of problems when I don't know what all the problems really are. I do know that it's leaking under the hood, and it's got a bad, the return lines are not good. It's been patched by someone's homemade outfit, so we will order the factory stuff there that is hopefully still available. And if it's not, then I guess we're going to end up patching. But I would like to do that nicely and get that put on, get that out here where it needs to be, and then from there we can go, you know what I'm saying, we can, once we get that on there and we know it's clean and we'll clean this all up as best we can, dry it up at least. Then when we know what we got there, then we're going to go down to the head of the pump, or see if the pump's leaking, and then we'll touch base with him and say, hey, do you want to rebuild a fuel pump right now, or do you want to use it this winter and then, you know, keep an eye on it and rebuild it some other time? Or do you want to do that yourself type of deal, or what have you? Because although it would be easier with the loader off, but we can, you know, if we get the loader broke loose and we get it off of here, we can potentially shine it up and have it where it'll get on and off of here a lot easier than it's going to this first time. Because I just have a feeling, friends, we are in for a battle. Why wouldn't we have a battle, you know? Everything we usually do is a battle. So, nighty-night New Holland, I guess, is the moral of this story. But we're plugging away. It's just slow. And other people are going to say, well, you should have done this or this or this or this. Well, I do things my way so that I don't spend a bunch of the guys' money first. Sometimes it seems like the long way around, but in the grand scheme of things, you don't always just start throwing parts at something. You need to kind of be a little bit of a, kind of have a plan, you know, of how you want to attack it. And so when we get some, in the next daylight, when I have plenty time, that's the next battle we're going to do. I started to do it tonight, and then I talked myself out of it, but now I've talked myself back into it. This loader is coming off of here, and then we may end up even taking the hood off to get down in there because of the way that it is. But I think we can make it happen. It's not a bad little tractor. I mean, when you look it over in the daylight, sometime we'll look it over better. But it's not overly greasy or dirty anywhere other than right there where this stuff is leaking under the hood. But I mean, you look at the back of the tractor and it's dry. It's clean as a pin. I mean, and that's not, I don't think that's just a guy washing it before he brings it. I mean, you can kind of tell it ain't hurting for cleanliness. It's not leaking. It doesn't look like it's pretty well holding its own, you know. It's a good little tractor. So yeah, we've rambled for long enough now, so we're going to call this one here. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.